Amelia Clark had arrived in the sun-baked town of Red Hollow, a place where the horizon stretched wide and the wind whispered through golden wheat fields. She wasn't seeking romance. She had only one goal: find work as a cook and save enough to start her own small cafe one day. Her chestnut hair was tied neatly in a braid, and her worn leather boots scuffed the wooden sidewalks as she stepped past the general store and saloon. The townsfolk gave her polite nods, some curious, some indifferent, as she made her way to the Tanner Ranch. It was a sprawling property with weathered fences and a barn that smelled faintly of hay and horses. Amelia had been promised employment by Mrs. Tanner, a kindly older woman who ran the household. Amelia's hands were full of hope and nervous energy. The idea of a new life thrilled and terrified her in equal measure. From the moment she entered the kitchen, she noticed how every utensil and ingredient had a story, how the warmth of the hearth reminded her of home she had left far behind. She worked methodically, chopping vegetables and kneading dough, lost in the rhythm of her tasks. But the quiet calm of the ranch was interrupted by a deep, commanding voice. "You must be Amelia," the voice said. She turned sharply to find a tall man leaning against the doorframe. His dark hair fell into his eyes, and the way he carried himself made it impossible to ignore him. He was rugged, with the kind of broad shoulders and square jaw that belonged on a cowboy calendar. His piercing blue eyes studied her with curiosity, and something unspoken that made her stomach flutter unexpectedly. He introduced himself as Colt Tanner, the owner of the ranch. Amelia forced a polite smile and nodded, careful not to let her nerves betray her. Little did she know, this cowboy's presence would soon transform the quiet life she had planned into a whirlwind of passion and longing she never expected. The first days passed with Amelia finding her rhythm in the kitchen. Colt was often busy overseeing ranch work, yet sometimes he would appear silently at the doorway, watching her cook with a protective intensity. At first, she told herself it was merely curiosity, but she couldn't deny the warmth that spread through her chest whenever he was near. There was a moment when a loaf of bread nearly fell, and Colt's hand steadied it effortlessly, their fingers brushing just enough to send a shock through her. She quickly pulled back, scolding herself for imagining things, yet a spark had been lit, an undeniable tension that neither of them could ignore. One evening, as Amelia prepared a hearty stew, a sudden storm rolled in over the horizon. Rain splattered against the windows, and the wind rattled the shutters. Colt appeared at her side without warning, offering to help carry pots and ingredients to the pantry. His presence was magnetic, and Amelia struggled to focus, her thoughts scattering like leaves in the storm. "You're good at this," Colt said, his voice lower than usual, almost a whisper that lingered in the air between them. Amelia's heart raced, unsure whether it was the heat of the kitchen or his proximity that made her palms sweat. She muttered a simple thanks, trying to regain her composure. That night, she stayed late to finish preparations, only to hear Colt's boots approaching. He leaned casually against the doorway, rain dripping from his hat. "You work too hard," he said, his voice softer now, almost a plea. She looked up, startled by the intensity in his gaze, and found herself unable to look away. It was in that moment he took a step closer, closing the distance between them. Amelia's mind screamed caution, but her heart betrayed her with every beat. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside her, as emotions she had long kept buried began to surface. Their hands brushed again, and Colt's strong grip held hers, just long enough to make her tremble. "You're going to stay here a lot longer, aren't you?" he asked, a hint of possessiveness threading through his words. Amelia could only nod, unable to speak, feeling an attraction she had never planned for, or wanted to admit. Days turned into weeks, and Amelia's routine became a dance with the cowboy who had quietly taken residence in her thoughts. Colt's attention was unmistakable, his protective glances, casual touches, and quiet moments of shared laughter. But with desire came fear, a fear that their connection was both inevitable and forbidden in ways she couldn't yet understand. One evening, as she cleared the last plate after dinner, Colt suddenly appeared behind her, his presence close and commanding. "Amelia," he murmured, his voice roughened by emotion, "I can't stop thinking about you." She froze, heat flooding her cheeks. "Colt," she whispered, unsure how to respond. His hand gently lifted her chin, tilting her face toward his. Their eyes locked, and the unspoken tension ignited into a blazing desire neither could contain. The storm outside had passed, but inside the tempest had only begun. One night, Colt led Amelia to the pasture under the silver light of the moon. Horses shifted in the stables, their soft neighs blending with the whispers of the night wind. Amelia felt a strange mix of fear and excitement as Colt stopped, turning to face her with that commanding intensity she had learned to anticipate. "I don't want to hide what I feel," he confessed, his hand reaching out to brush a stray hair from her face. "I need you, Amelia. Not just here, cooking, but all of you." Her breath hitched, and she stepped back instinctively, overwhelmed by the depth of his desire and sincerity. Yet there was no denying the pull, the magnetic force that drew her toward him. The moments stretched, heartbeats echoing in the quiet night. Finally, Amelia's own voice trembled as she whispered, "Colt, I don't know if I should." He shook his head gently, stepping closer until their bodies were almost touching. "You already are," he said, his hand wrapping around hers, pulling her closer. "I want you as my woman." The words struck her like lightning, and in that instant, Amelia realized that her heart had already chosen, even if her mind struggled to keep pace. Their first kiss was slow, fiery, and inevitable, a collision of longing and restraint breaking apart at last. In that moonlit pasture, Amelia understood that the life she had planned was nothing compared to the life unfolding before her, a life with the cowboy who had claimed her heart before she even realized it could be his. Morning sunlight poured into the kitchen, casting a golden glow over Amelia's hair as she stirred the morning batter. Colt entered silently, his gaze tracing her curves with that same intensity that left her breathless. He leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her move with admiration and something more primal. Amelia could feel it in the air. The tension between them had shifted, becoming more urgent, more unavoidable. Every brush of his hand, every shared glance was now electric. He helped her carry trays to the dining hall, their fingers brushing with each step, sending sparks up her arms and deep into her chest. Even the ranch work seemed to bring them closer. Colt would call her to help with horses or fix fences, insisting she learn the ropes, all the while teasing her with subtle touches that left her knees weak. Amelia found herself drawn to him, caught between the desire to resist and the impossibility of doing so. Late afternoons were their moments of secret intimacy, sitting under the sprawling oak tree, sharing stories of their pasts, laughing until their sides ached, and stealing fleeting touches that promised more. The ranch had become a playground for their slow, burning passion, each day pulling them deeper into a bond that neither could ignore. Yet, life in Red Hollow was not without its trials. Rival ranchers eyed Colt's land with envy, and rumors of Amelia's presence and her growing closeness with Colt began to stir tension in town. One evening, a visitor arrived at the ranch, a man from Amelia's past, reminding her of the life she had almost forgotten. His arrival sparked jealousy in Colt, and a confrontation ensued that left Amelia caught in the middle. Her heart raced as she realized that desire was entwined with danger, and she needed to navigate both carefully. Colt's protective instincts flared, and he took control, asserting his claim not with anger but with unwavering devotion. Amelia saw a side of him she had never known, a depth of emotion that terrified and thrilled her simultaneously. That night, as rain pattered against the roof, Colt held Amelia close in the barn loft, whispering promises of protection and love. "You're mine," he murmured, his lips brushing her ear. "No one will take you from me." Amelia's heart ached with longing and relief, surrendering fully to the cowboy, who had become the center of her universe. Their bond grew stronger, fueled by desire, trust, and the shared understanding that whatever storms came, they would face them together. The climax of their story came under the vast expanse of a twilight sky. Colt rode out with Amelia on the horse behind him, the wind in their hair and freedom in their hearts. Stopping atop a hill overlooking the ranch, Colt turned to face her fully, his eyes burning with intensity and affection. "Amelia Clark," he said, his voice strong and unwavering, "I don't just want you here. I don't want anyone else. Be my woman here, forever." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes as she realized that everything she had come for, a life of purpose, love, and belonging, was finally in her grasp. With a nod and a smile, she whispered, "Yes, Colt, I'm yours." They embraced under the fading sun, the world around them fading into insignificance. In that moment, the ranch, the town, and their past fears all dissolved. Only the future mattered, a future where Amelia's heart and soul belonged entirely to the cowboy who had held her tight and shown her a life filled with love, desire, and unshakable devotion. Their journey had begun with a kitchen and a simple plan, but it ended with a love story that would echo across Red Hollow forever.